The House Judiciary Committee held the first hearing as part of its impeachment investigation Tuesday. President Trump's former campaign manager, Corey Lewandowski, was grilled by lawmakers. Their questions centered on an incident former special counsel Robert Mueller described as possible obstruction of justice by the president. Nancy Cordes is on Capitol Hill.
The witness will answer the question without further delay.
Corey Lewandowski never worked in the White House, but 2 years ago, he got an unusual order from the president.
He dictated to you exactly what he wanted you to put into the mouth of Attorney General Jeff Sessions, correct?
I believe he asked me to deliver a message for Jeff to consider delivering himself.
According to Lewandowski's own notes, Mr. Trump wanted Sessions to, quote, meet with the special counsel, Robert Mueller, to limit his jurisdiction because the president was, quote, being treated very unfairly. If Sessions refused to meet, quote, Lewandowski should tell Sessions he was fired.
Didn't you think it was a little strange that the president would sit down with you one-on-one and ask you to do something that you knew was against the law?
I didn't think the president asked me to do anything illegal.
And yet, Lewandowski never followed through.
You got cold feet.
Yeah, you chickened out.
I went on vacation.
You went on vacation.
Lewandowski is considering a bid for the Senate from New Hampshire and made the most of his time in the spotlight here, tweeting out a link to his website during the hearing, Elaine, which lasted just over 5 hours.
Nancy Cordes, thank you. CBSN political contributor Michael Graham joins me now from Boston. He's a conservative columnist for the Boston Herald and political editor for Inside Sources. Michael, thank you so much for being with us. Just last week, the committee voted to allow staff attorneys 1 hour of questioning at impeachment-related hearings. On Tuesday, Corey Lewandowski was asked if he's ever misrepresented what he did on behalf of the president. A staff attorney then played a clip of Lewandowski on MSNBC saying, quote, I don't ever remember the president ever asking me to get involved with Jeff Sessions or the Department of Justice in any way, shape, or form. And I want to play some of Lewandowski's response.
And that was not true, was it?
I have no obligation to be honest with the media because they're just as dishonest as anybody else.
So you're admitting, sir, you were not being truthful in that clip, correct?
My interview with Ari Melberg?
Yes.
Can be interpreted any way you'd like.
The question is, are you a truth teller in that interview?
I'm a truth teller every time I stand before Congress or a committee of jurisdiction and raise my hand and swear to God under oath.
My question, sir, is when you said the president never asked you to get involved with Mr. Sessions.
I have no obligation to have a candid conversation with the media whatsoever, just like they have no obligation to cover me honestly, and they do it inaccurately all the time.
So you're admitting that on national television you were lying there?
What I'm saying is they have been inaccurate on many occasions, and perhaps I was inaccurate at that time.
Why did you lie on national television, sir, about the president giving you a message to the Attorney General about the special counsel's investigation?
I don't recall that particular day and my mindset at the time, so I couldn't answer that.
So, Michael, listening to that, you know, depending on where one sits, one might say that perhaps was not helpful, but others might say, look, politically speaking, if you are a supporter of President Trump, that exchange was something that you would hold up as an example of someone ardently defending President Trump. What did you make of that exchange?
So the word among Republicans is that there were two audiences for Corey Lewandowski's comments. The first was Donald Trump. He had to like what he saw in general. And the second was the New Hampshire Republican primary voters. Corey Lewandowski is not an announced candidate, but there is a PAC. He's been talking about it for weeks. I've interviewed him several times for our coverage up here. And when he said, I don't have to tell the truth to the press because the press doesn't tell the truth about me, you could hear Republican primary voters cheering all across the Granite State.
Right. It was definitely would seem to be red meat for those Republican primary voters. So let's talk about this. Lewandowski launched a potential Senate campaign website during his hearing Tuesday. Did he use his testimony to his advantage? Would that be an example of using that opportunity to kind of appeal to those GOP primary voters?
You know, it's interesting. I think CBS did an excellent job of finding probably his most difficult moment of the day, and he still managed to come out. In other places, he just soared. He rocked it. He mocked the committee. He defended the president. He said that there are people who hate Donald Trump more than they love their country, and he got away with it. I mean, you have to ask yourself, the three other Republicans in New Hampshire who are in the Republican primary to take on Jeanne Shaheen in 2020 had to be shaking their heads going, oh my gosh, you're giving this guy an infomercial on national television. And he played it. But this is a Corey Lewandowski style setup. He's a fighter. He's a Trumpian guy. Imagine Donald Trump sitting in that chair. You'd have gotten a similar performance.
And so let's talk about the sort of political landscape in New Hampshire. What is the message that will likely resonate with voters there?
So in the Republican primary, there are only two issues: love Trump and hate Democrats. And the Representative Nadler gave Lewandowski the chance to do that on national television for 5 hours today. So that's good. The general election is very tough. Senator Shaheen is popular. The head-to-head polling that we've seen so far show that she has probably a double-digit lead over Lewandowski if he wins the nomination. And I think that after today and the kind words by President Trump in the past, Trump gave him a shout out when he was in Manchester, New Hampshire about a month ago. He's the front runner certainly in the primary. And for primary voters, they want to see that fight continue. Trump is very popular in New Hampshire among Republicans, 80 to 90% approval. But among voters in general, President Trump is 10 to 15 points underwater.
Could this potential Senate run have an impact on President Trump's run for re-election in 2020?
There are two national aspects, I think. One is what you just said. If the strategy for President Trump is to get low motivation, non-college educated, rural and ex-urban white voters to turn out, guys who normally don't vote that often, whatever, get them excited, have them turn out and help him win Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and possibly New Hampshire, which has one of the highest populations percentage-wise of non-educated white voters in the country. And Corey Lewandowski energizes that same base, so he could amplify the Trump effect, if you will. Then there's a question of the U.S. Senate itself. Shaheen has a lead, but she was listed in the Washington Post 10 most in-play Senate seats. If Democrats lose because so many rural Trump voters show up in New Hampshire that Shaheen, loses her seat, there is no chance that they will be able to win the U.S. Senate under the current map. And so if somehow Republicans could pull an upset here with Corey Lewandowski energizing the Trump vote, it would be very good news for Mitch McConnell and the Republicans in the Senate.
All right, Michael Graham. Michael, great to see you. Thank you very much.
Always happy to be here. Thanks.